Welcome to the Young Entrepreneur's Journey with your host, Yasmina Ellins.
Welcome to the Young Entrepreneur's Journey, where we take the skills, mindset, and attitude needed to achieve any entrepreneurial endeavor, whether you're just starting out or you're already on your journey. And now, our host, Yasmina Ellins.
Hello and welcome back to the Young Entrepreneur's Journey podcast with your host, Yasmina Ellins. And today I am chatting with the wonderful Sharran Srivatsaa, who is a serial entrepreneur, a sought-after keynote speaker, and a respected thought leadership resource for publications such as the Wall Street Journal, Success Magazine, Huffington Post, and Forbes. Sharran has most recently led Teles Properties' unprecedented 10x growth over 5 years to $3.4 billion and a 4-year consecutive streak on Inc. 500 fastest growing companies list, resulting in its acquisition by US real estate powerhouse Douglas Elliman. And prior to Teles, Sharran actually worked both at Goldman Sachs and Credit Suisse, where he collaborated with management teams of fast-growing businesses around the country, around the US, on investment advisory and corporate strategy. So not only does he have all of the entrepreneurial background, he also has a lot of corporate insight. And having successfully completed many acquisitions, joint ventures, management buyouts, mergers, and capital raises, Sharran serves as director and advisor on numerous company boards. He's also a member of Genius Network, which is the highest level marketing mastermind out there, led by marketing whiz Joe Polish. He's really well-respected guy. He is also the founder of the 5 a.m. Club, the FourWeekMBA, and host of top-rated Spotify podcast, Business School. So with that onslaught of incredible professional accolades behind you, I'd like to welcome you to the podcast. And thank you so much for having this chat with us today, Sharran.
Awesome, Yasmina. Thank you for having me. A lot of people don't realize that, first of all, that it takes a lot of effort to do what you do, to get people on, to have great conversations, and to put it out into the world. And so you don't know the impact that you're having yet, because a lot of people are listening to this in their cars, on the way to work, in the gym, et cetera, and you're making a big difference, and your effort is awesome. So thank you for putting the effort to do this.
Thank you so much, Sharran, for your time. I really appreciate that. So my first question for you, and the one that I ask everyone at the beginning of this podcast, is the origin story. So What originally got you onto your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, so the interesting part is we all have something that happens that makes us realize that we're different, right? Something that happens, and it's not sometimes it's like, hey, I excelled at something. Sometimes it's, hey, I failed at something. Sometimes it's like, wow, I'm not good enough. Sometimes it's a, wow, I'm really good. So what happened for me is, I'll state something, and I'll come back to it, which I think everyone will appreciate. We hear a lot of this in today's world, which says, well, if I can do it, you can do it too. We say, oh, well, if Sharran can do it, you can do it. If Yasmina can do it, you can do it too. And I think that's not fair. That's not fair, because the world is not you. The world is not me. We're all unique in our own ways. And so let's come back to that. And let me tell you why. So I am, this may not mean for a lot of things. I am colorblind. Not that it means anything. I am tone deaf. I didn't hit my growth spurt until later in high school. I was dyslexic, and I had ADD, ADHD. So if you put all of that together for a second, right, I got kicked out of art class because I was colorblind. I got kicked out of music class because I was tone deaf. I was dyslexic, so I could barely do math. I was ADD, ADHD, so I couldn't read. And I was the smallest kid in class in school when you think about that. And so what happens when you put all of those together is you get bullied. Like, you are the perfect person for people to pick on. There is nobody else at school. Like, all of those cannot happen in one person. And it's probably just like at any given time, that only happens to one person. And I was that person. And the reason I tell you that is I remember the time, Yasmina, where I had to walk from one classroom to another classroom, not even like 15 feet away. And I ran around the entire school just so I wouldn't get beaten in the lockers. And this was for a young kid in school, right? When you realize that early on, you just have to realize that, you know what, I may need something. I may need a stroke of luck. I may need something to happen to me. I may need a break. And this all happened in India, where I grew up as a child, and my parents realized that something was wrong, but I never told them because I thought this is how it is. And I will never forget this day. And this is where everything changed for me. I never forget this day because my father and I, it was my 10th birthday. We were sitting in front of a park bench. My dad was talking to me about my birthday. And he says, your mother and I are going to give you a bigger and better future. That was his favorite saying. We're going to give you a bigger and better future. And I was like, I am 10. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand what that means. Right. Looking back, and he says, we need to get you to a place that appreciates who you are, because this environment's not working for you. Now I'm thinking, now my parents are abandoning me. Like, they're kicking a 10-year-old out of the house. Like, I didn't know what was happening. And he says, we need to find you a skill to give you a chance to, break out of this. And so we were sitting in front of 2 tennis courts, and he says, can you learn to play tennis? I was like, I have never lifted a tennis racket in my life. Now you want, I can't do anything right. And now you want me to learn a new skill. And so I said, of course. And I did that. But so at that point, we actually made a commitment that tennis would be my number one thing, that I would focus, go all in on it, because that would be my passport to leaving India so I can get to the UK, to get to Australia, get to the US, to give myself a better life. And so let's come back to what I said before, right? We always say, if I can do it, you can do it too. Well, I don't think that's true. A lot of people are saying, they try to give people inspiration of, well, if a guy that could barely do maths and read and get by in school, if he can do it, I can do it too. Not really. That doesn't help people think about how to do better, because they're like, it should give them inspiration, but it's only for a short burst. Now, I want to give them the tactical association with that. What my parents did, what they did was they created a support system, right? They said, hey, you're not in this alone, and we're going to kind of support you to doing something cool. Now, it's not about if I can do it, you can do it too. It's about, if I can do it, what is my support system so that you can go model that same support system? And so if you want to become a great tennis player, you go model like Andy Murray's support system. You go model Rafael Nadal's support system. You don't have to train like them. You just have to model their support system. And I think when you model other people's support systems, that's when you realize that, one, it's not just about you, and two, more other people are invested in your success. So for me right now, the biggest lesson, kind of origin getting out there, is it's not about just modeling a person, it is modeling their support system. And the faster you can model their support system, cooler things start to happen.
Definitely. It's all about creating that environment, right? Where you create that environment what was the environment in which these particular people managed to thrive? What did they have around them that enabled them to give them that vehicle to achieve that greatness that everyone perceives that they've achieved, which is a really fantastic message. And I did read, I believe, that you played tennis professionally, right?
I did. I tried. And you learn pretty quickly that you're not good enough very fast, right? Like I was good in India, I was good in Asia, but then I had 14-year-old Chilean kids just beating me upside down. It was so like you think you're good, and then suddenly you're like, wow, I can never compete. Like, these guys are so much better, and they're 13 and 14. Like, it's like I knew that I was never going to make it, but it was good enough to give me, the passport, if you will, the platform to get out of that environment. And I will tell you right now, if I was still stuck in that environment, I would still be very, very mediocre. And big thanks to my parents for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, props to them. The environment that's around you, the support system that you create yourself, that's everything, to be honest. So I'm wondering, how did that then translate into your life and business? You're very business. You're at Goldman, you're at Credit Suisse. You did the corporate thing. You got an MBA, and then you went into real estate, investing. You're an entrepreneur, right? So you had this whole journey through all that, and I'm sure there are several interesting parts about that that we can unpick. But how did you manage to create that support system around yourself for business?
Yeah. Great question. So let's tell a fun story for everybody, and then we'll build it into a support system conversation. So I remember this on the first day of school. So I came to the US for university, and my parents were not, extremely wealthy. They sold everything that they had to send me to the US. and they gave me 1 year's worth of expenses. They wrote me one check, 1 year's worth of everything. And so a lot of people say, well, I came to the US with $3 in my pocket. No, they gave me a 1 year cushion, which I think is amazing, right? They say, hey, go. And I remember my dad, he said, here's a 1 year check. It's got full expenses for the year. And the next 3 years of university are on you. If you can't make it, come back and I'll take care of you. But this is my gift to you. So I was like, hey, I'm out. This is awesome. Let me go do this. So I show up my first day in the US, and this was before cell phones, et cetera. And I had someone come to get me from Chicago airport, right? And it just so happens I'm waiting for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, nobody there, 8 hours. And I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna sleep here because I don't know who else to call. And then in the morning, I'm sleeping in the airport. The morning, the public address system goes off. And I will tell you right now, like, you don't want your name ever called on a public address system in the airport. It's just weird, right? And it says, Sharran Srivatsaa, please pick up the white courtesy phone. So I go pick up the phone. They're like, hey, the person that was supposed to pick you up their car broke down. So they want you to take a bus to Moline, Illinois. And I'm like, I don't know the US from a hole in the ground. I just got there 8 hours ago. So I'm like, okay, I'll go find a bus to get to Moline, Illinois. And so I go find the bus, I get on the bus. And then this was supposed to be like a 3 hour ride, and 3 hours happens, 6 hours happens, 8 hours happens. Clearly I'm on the wrong bus. So it's nightfall again. I get to this bus depot, and the driver comes up to me and he's like, hey kid, I think you may be in the wrong place. So let's figure out what we're going to do. And I said, well, I'm trying to get to Moline, Illinois. He says, well, in the opposite direction. I go, okay, well, what do I do? He's like, we may want to go sleep the night and then we'll figure it out tomorrow. So Yasmina, I get out of the bus. I have one bag, and out of nowhere, someone jumps me and wants to mug me with a knife. This is 24 hours in the US. And literally, I don't even have a wallet. I have like $110 in my pocket, a check, and some clothes. Literally, I don't even have anything else. And this guy starts, he has a knife, and I don't even have a way to call my parents, nothing. Nobody even knows where I am. So I was like, I really don't want to die in this alleyway 24 hours into my new life in the United States. So he says, well, give me all your money. And I'm like, I don't have any. So he's starting to look through my clothes, and then he literally tells me this. He's like, you are the worst guy I've ever mugged. And I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy, right? So here, in a fight for survival, I pull out my $100. I had like $110 or whatever. I pulled out a $100 bill that I had in my pocket, and I said, listen, I have this $100, and I would love to give it to you because I know you're not thinking about hurting me. You probably just need this. I said something like this, right? For your life. But I'm stuck, and I don't know where I'm going. And I'm lost too. So if I can make a proposal, if I give you this $100, will you give me 50 back to the mugger, right? He looks at me, he literally starts laughing. And I kid you not, this is what happened. I give him the $100. He pulls out his ratty wallet, and he dishes me back a 20, 20, and a 5. So he gives me back $45, and he walks away, right? So my first 24 hours in the US, I'm negotiating with a mugger, and not like, if you put me in that situation right now, I would probably freeze, right? But at that point, some out of body thing happened, and and there's a lesson here. The lesson here is, yes, first, do not negotiate with a mugger, because that's probably, not going to happen. But I gave him 100, I got 45 back. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. And let's talk about the best business lesson any of us can ever learn based on that, right? So I've been thinking about this for 20 plus years. And I was like, what is that lesson that it teach me? And that is, it's amazing to sell money at a discount. I literally gave him 100 to give me 45, right? Why do people buy stuff from us? Hey, here's a iPhone. I'm going to give it, you give me $1,000 and I'll give you an iPhone. The reason you buy it is because you know that it has significantly more value than $1,000 or 800 pounds or whatever it may be, right? There's a reason for that. It is the most powerful thing that we can do from a business perspective is to sell money at a discount. And almost that's the easiest sale. Why does free work? Hey, I'll give you this for free. Why? Because you're selling money at a discount. That's why selling anything at a discount, especially when you sell money, which has tangible value at a discount, is a really powerful lesson. And when you have that lesson, great things happen. So that's like the foundation of everything, because now no one can say no to if I told you right now, hey, Yasmina, I'll give you 100, can you give me 45 back? Literally, you're like, That's weird, but sure. How many times would you do that deal? You do it every day, right? And for us, we want to think about, a lot of times we're like, hey, let's build some funnels. Let's get a marketing program. Let's get sales. Let's get all of this. We are trying to convince people to buy our stuff, right? And an irresistible offer is way more compelling than a convincing argument. We want to keep convincing people as opposed to just making irresistible offers. And so like the entrepreneurs out there that are listening, the goal for you when you're starting out should be, how can I create just an irresistible offer? And once you create an irresistible offer, powerful things start to happen. And that goes into like finding new mentors and all of that as well. And that's when cool things start to happen. So hopefully that's helpful, because that goes into like a cool mentor story I can share at some point. But when you start to sell money, when you start to learn the greatest marketing lesson is to sell money at a discount, powerful things start to happen from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you make an offer that's so compelling that it seems like you'd be an idiot not to buy it. It's just like, oh, wow, this is the thing that I need. And you sell that money at a discount. That's a really fantastic, that's a really funny story as well. That you literally had the balls to negotiate with your mugger. That's incredible, but a really powerful lesson as well. And let's riff off straight into your mentor story. Like why are mentors important? What is the power in having a mentor?
Yeah. So, I'll give you the interesting, I'll give you how I found my first mentor, and then we'll talk about how a lot of people have helped me in my life. And so I was early on one of those people that said, well, why would someone want to help me? I can do it all myself. I want to show the world that I'm hardworking. I'm pretty smart. Like I had a chip on my shoulder, and I still, this drives me, is I have something to prove. My parents gave me a leg up. They've sacrificed everything. So still the one thing that drives me personally today, not that anyone else cares, is I literally I wake up and I feel like I have something to prove every single day. And that's what drives me. So I was driving, we were running our first business in San Francisco, and there was a small leadership conference. And so I was talking to my dad, and I'm like, Dad, I'm really thinking about, wanting to go to this conference. He's like, just go. It's one day. Just go, sit in the back, put your hoodie on, take some notes. It'll be a good break for you from the business. I said, okay. So I go to this conference, Yasmina. I'm sitting in the back. There's probably like 30 people in the room. I'm sitting in the back at these, little circle tables. Speakers are okay. And then after lunch, this lady comes up and she starts talking. I'm like, you know what? I'm here. I might as well take some notes and pay attention. So she starts talking, and I'm like, oh, cool. She had this cool, calming voice and very inspirational. And she starts talking, and I'm starting to take some notes. And as she's presenting some ideas, I have a question that shows up in my head. And I'm about to raise my hand, and she naturally answers the question, like she was reading my mind. I was like, that's weird. So I'm writing notes again, and then I had this question. I'm about to raise my hand again. And she naturally answers the question like she was reading my mind. I go, this is very weird. And it happens like 3 or 4 times. And I got insane value from how to build a business, how to think about personal growth and all of that. So I'm driving home, and I call my dad. I'm like, Dad, you won't believe this. And I explain this exact story that I told you. My dad says, do you think she can help you? And I was like, well, I'm sure she can help me. And then my dad says, well, ask her. I go, what do you mean? I just can't like call her and say, can you help me? That's weird. He's like, no, you need to pay her. I go, well, I don't have a lot of money to pay her. And this was early on. I was in my early 20s. And he says, well, pick a number that is going to hurt that you can still afford. It's got nothing to do with her. Pick a number that's going to hurt that you can still afford. And I'll tell you what it was at that point. At that point, we had a business, et cetera. So it was I wrote a check. I said $10,000. And he goes, okay. My dad gave me the script, and I'll give you the script, what he told me. He's like, write her an email that says, hey, so-and-so, I saw you at this event and you blew my mind. I would like to offer you $10,000 as a symbol of my seriousness. Literally, that was a script. I'm not looking for coaching or mentoring or anything. All I'm looking for is that from time to time, I can email you with some questions and you will prioritize some of the responses. That's it. Literally, all I wanted was to pay for access, knowing that she wouldn't feel like I was taking advantage, right? Because when someone is generous, generosity doesn't scale if it's not fair, right? And so that's why and we'll talk about this because people think it's just woo-woo, but there's a karmic balance to writing a check, right? And so if I have spent 25 years losing and making millions of dollars, and if I can spend 30 minutes with you and compress that curve, you are not entitled to it for free. You're not that's not how the world works, because now you are in a karmic debt, not just to me, but to the world, conceptually speaking, whether people believe in that or not. But if you wrote me a check, that karmic balance is wiped and you are free and clear of that. That's what I believe, right? So that's how it started. Yasmina, I am not joking. She writes me back an email in like 5 minutes. She goes, "Is this a joke?" And so, and so I go, "No, just send me wiring instructions." She replies, she's like, "Write it up. Here are the wiring instructions." So I didn't know what to write it up means. So I hit print on the contract, on the email. I signed it. I scanned it back to her and I wired her 10 grand. She became my first coach, right? Mm-hmm. And I never spoke to her. I would write and rewrite emails, and I would write her like one question. And sometimes she would answer it quickly, and sometimes she would say, "Hey, let's get on a call." But what happened there was, when I was stuck, I had a place to go. And what happens today is, when people are stuck, they go to YouTube. When people are stuck, they go to Instagram and they just follow like 17 things that influencers say. That's interesting, but that's not customized and personalized to your situation. It's like, how do you hire? Well, there's 5 million videos on how to hire people. How are you going to sort through all that noise? You don't have 4 years to look at every single YouTube video. You need something that basically says, "Hey, I can talk to you for 15 minutes and tell you exactly what you need to do," right? So a lot of times what you're doing for the mentor is you're buying speed. You're just buying speed. And if speed is not important, feel free. Read every book on the planet, see every video, and spend the 30 years trying to learn it, and the world's already changed. But otherwise, like the CEOs that I work with and I mentor, literally it's a one text message: "Should I do this? Yes or no?" And I'm like, "I don't think you should do this for these 3 reasons." Done. What could have saved them 1, 2, 3 years, I solve in 5 minutes, because I've already been there and I have, kind of gone down that path. So that was my first experience hiring my first coach. And ever since then, I've always had someone that has been a professional. I call him a professional advisor. That way I know that the karmic balance is in place, and it is their responsibility. Because if you write me a check, now it is my responsibility to deliver you success. You've literally outsourced success to me. Think about that for a second. You outsource building this podcast to a podcast VA or a manager, but you've outsourced your success to me. How cool is that, right? And so I think that's one of the cool parts about having a mentor.
Yeah, I think there are so many different parts to unpack in that story. It's like, first of all, you put down that amount of money and you were told what amount will hurt. The reason that you do that is because now you have the emotional leverage to actually follow through. Like, when's the last time that you got something for free and you just didn't, like, you did something with it, right? It's like, most people don't do anything with the free stuff because they don't value it. But when you put like, damn, $10,000 on it, you're like, wow, this is worth a lot. I'm going to take it seriously. And then on the mentor side, is so you can have mentors for free, and there can be mentors in your life that once in a while, you'll have a chat and it'll be useful. But to have someone, now they feel obligated and very committed to your success. Now it's like, they have to help you succeed because, as you were saying, the karmic balance, you paid that amount of money. That's the balance of the scales, right? And it's just to have an advisor in your pocket, right there. I love how you were saying it buys you speed, because time is your most valuable resource. It is something that cannot be replenished, and money can be replenished. And if you can, many times when I've put down money for mentorship, right, I've made more money back. I've made extra money back, right? So it's like a cover charge for the information, for the access, for the speed, and then you make all the money back and way more. And you build a great relationship, and all of these amazing things happen from there. So that's a really fantastic story. And mentors are a wonderful thing. Kind of staying on this topic of mentors and relationships and environment, right? I know that you're a member of the Genius Network. I also know you're a member of, I believe, Young Presidents Organization, right? So these really high level masterminds. And so I'm wondering, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the importance of network and masterminds, and how you go about building your network and you go about building win-win relationships with other people. Yeah,
great question. So let's get vulnerable for a second, right? Because I think this is important.
I'm ready.
If I could go back and change one thing, only one thing in my life, just one thing. And a lot of people, and anytime we talk to anybody that that even however old or young they are, if they can say, if I could go back and change one thing, we should probably pay attention to that, right? Because they've probably reflected on this. And I will tell you, Yasmina, the one thing that I would change is to have somebody, a group of people, or a person or whoever, a support system where I can freely talk about money. Very few people can freely talk about money. Today, which is like this week, one of the CEOs that I mentor is selling his business. He's 37 years old, and he's selling his business for $235 million, right? Whatever anybody thinks, that is a lot of money, right? But the last 6 months of conversations have been around, like, I have gotten to know him at a completely different level. He's like, well, I have this level of debt. I have this level of expenses. I really hoped I would make this. I'm going to write a $4 million tax check in the first 3 days. Like, when someone, he couldn't even share that. He told me that before he told his accountant, before he told his attorney, before he told his girlfriend, right? And before he told his parents. The problem, I think, a lot of this is my number one kind of to bring people into my core network inner circle, is that I want to ask myself the question is, am I comfortable enough talking to them about money? And if the first conversation that I have with anybody in a coaching relationship is like, I literally go to the money stuff right away. I'm like, hey, what'd you make last year? What'd you make this year? How much do you have debt? And if they struggle to give me that, this is not going to work, because I want to hit and break down those barriers so fast, because as soon as you do that, there's so much vulnerability to grow from, right? And I will tell you, there's still people today who are 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, who've done so much, but they still hold money so close to their vest that they can't talk about it. And if you can't have someone to talk with money about, then you can never have a breakthrough when it comes to that, because it's weirdly personal, right? So if I were to do anything differently, I would do that first. And so a lot of my kind of mastermind groups, or the stuff that I put a lot of effort into, there's full vulnerability. So I'll talk about YPO for a second. So YPO is Young Presidents Organization. It's a CEO level mastermind group for folks that run, business, kind of large businesses. You can go look it up at ypo.org. Very, very cool, kind of very awesome network. It's built for people that run businesses and struggle with business running issues, which is cool. And so we have this thing called a forum. So I have a forum of 8 other entrepreneurs, business owners. And this is no joke, by the way. Every quarter, so every 90 days, each of us brings our complete personal profit and loss statement to the group. Wow. Like, think about that for a second, right? And there's a lot of people in that group who make significantly more money than me. And I look at it and be like, wow, I thought I was doing pretty good. Now, he's doing, like, no wonder he has a jet and a yacht and he's making 10 times more. But there's a reason for that, right? And this is what I want people to think about. There's a reason for that. And the reason is, as you alluded to, like, right in the beginning, was environment, right? We call it environmental exposure for a reason, because when I see that someone in my peer group, I'll pick easy numbers, right? And say I'm making $100,000, just use round numbers, and say I see someone else making $1 million. Suddenly what happens to me is it makes that 10x jump, it makes it a lot more real. It makes it a lot more real. Otherwise, all I'm reading is, oh, look at Gary Vaynerchuk's net worth or Elon Musk's net worth or whatever. And you're like, that's all unreachable. But when I know that someone is my friend and in my inner circle and is sharing their profit and loss statement and they making 10x more than me, it makes it believable, makes it reachable. And Yasmina, there's this concept of minimum standards. We all make what we believe we should be making. It's a very weird psychological concept, right? So if you finished university and you're like, hey, I want to get I'm picking numbers out of thin air because I'm math is, I want to make it easy. So let's say you want a job that creates 100,000 pounds, right? Pays you that. Well, that's what your focus is on. That's what you're looking at. You don't look at anything below that. Your minimum standard is 100,000, and you will find it because that's your minimum standard. But now think about it. You're in a group and you're like, wait, Sharran is the same as me. He was my classmate. I think I'm smarter than him. He didn't have any kind of advantage, but he's built a business that pays him $1 million a year. Well, I should lift my minimum standards, because you naturally lift it. That's the second thing. Once you have a money conversation, the second thing that happens when you're in this environmental exposure group is it changes your relationship with what you think is possible. And that is, you can never replace that, because when you see a peer doing better without you feeling jealous, you feel inspired, and you feel it's like there's a probable future and a possible future. It changes the possibility of your future. And you're like, wow, I can do this too. And Yasmina, I will tell you right now, I have done more in my life just because other people have shattered this minimum standard ceiling for me. I was like, I never thought I could do that. I never thought I could live in Southern California. I never thought I could buy a jet. I never thought I could drive a Tesla. I never thought any of that stuff. But having see that happen, I'm like, whoa, if she can do that, then it's possible. So how do I build a plan for that? So the second big thing about having a great mastermind group is environmental exposure. And I force myself to do that. And when you can get vulnerable like that, it makes you believe that cool things are possible.
Yeah, it's such a key point. Like, that which you can conceive, right? You can achieve. I think that's how the saying goes. I like it. Right? Yeah. And the moment you have people around you and you have similar goals and you're all crushing it in your different spaces, the moment I started getting people in my life that were doing way better than me, and there was no sort of competitiveness, there was no jealousy, there was like just admiration of, that's awesome. How can we help each other out? Wow, that's possible. Then I rate, because you're going to fall to your lowest standards, right? Kind of what you were saying. So as you raise your standards, you're like, wow, I can do so much more than I thought was capable. And I think when you see these profit and loss statements, you can see, oh, I see how they did that. And I see where that came from. You can see how the puzzle pieces fit together. You're like, wow, now I have a clear picture. I've got a clearer map of how they did it and how I might be able to do it as well. So that's an extremely powerful thing. Yeah.
I'll tell you the one very cool thing, right, is the, we all learn things. We're all really good in our own way from a tactics perspective. And people just naturally don't share those. And there's a great Genius Network saying, which says any problem in the world can be solved by your very own Genius Network, which is a really cool way of thinking about it, because most people, let's say we have a problem, whatever the problem is. Hey, I need to raise money, or I need to build a product, or I need to figure out how to build a personal brand, or whatever it may be. The first thing we think is, well, how do I do that? Because our educational system has taught us to say, here's a problem, how do you solve it, right? Which is, they're teaching us self-reliance in a lot of ways. But the self-reliance was taught to us in an industrial, agrarian-based society. Like we live in today's world where you don't need to solve anything, right? Because it's generally solved out there. So instead of asking how do I solve this problem? The question we ask is, who can help me solve this problem? Just like the first question should never be how, because as soon as we get in the how, here's what happens. Well, if I need to build my personal brand, I need to be on Instagram, I need to be on Facebook, I need to be on YouTube, and I need to get good on video, I need to build a podcast like Yasmina, and then I need to take those, I need to build audiograms out of it, and I need to build an email list, and I need to buy a media buyer. Like now you're like, I can't do any of that, so I'm not going to do anything, so I'm in inaction right now. Instead, you're like, okay, I want to build a personal brand. What's the goal? To become super famous so I can impact the world. Awesome. Who has already done this? Who can help me do this? Let me go find that person and have the conversation. Maybe I can trade services. Maybe I can pay them on profit share. There's so many ways to do this stuff. And like I actually had a guy that said, hey, Sharran, I can't afford your fee, but I will, I'll give you like significantly more percentage of my company and all the first share of profits. And I was like, just the fact that you would say that, right? Which is way cool. And so, yeah, I rarely do that, but he's like, I'll pay you all the profits, I'll work for free, and I'll give you 50% of my business. Now, he has 100% of zero, or he can get me and keep 50% of something that can amazingly grow, where I can send out one email and build his business, right? Which is pretty amazing. So when you ask the question, not how can I do something, but who can help me do this, and not worry about the finances or anything, just ask the question who, I think you'll manifest a lot more opportunities.
Definitely, because any problem that you can think of, somebody's already solved it. So you just got to go find that person. It's such a good point, Sharran. I'm going to keep diving down this environment rabbit hole. I'd love to ask you about the 5 a.m. club that you founded. And I'm wondering what inspired you to start that in the first place? And what was the motivation behind building this amazing community?
Yeah, so good question. So super, as most things go, all of this, all of this starts by accident, right? Like anytime someone thinks that, even I bet you have, we talked offline about your podcast. Every time, most of the stuff is by accident. And then when we do it for a while, when we look back, we're like, oh, we give it more meaning as to how it all happened, and we can give it more structure. So give you the 10-second story of how it all happened. So I was extremely sick about 4 or 5 years ago. I was sick. I was in and out of hospitals often. Doctors didn't know what was happening with my health. And my doctor was running a lot of blood work for me, to the point where I was getting my blood tested daily because they wanted to see if the medications were working, et cetera. My doctor randomly said, he's like, hey, Sharran, like yesterday, I think that you do better in the mornings than you are in the evenings. And I'm a night owl. I love staying up. I love grinding. I love doing more work. I'm like, hey, if I worked harder at night, then I will beat everyone else. Like that's my, and a lot of entrepreneurs do that, right? Well, he says, well, your body's better in the morning. And I was like, oh, please don't make me wake up, right? And he says, well, just try it. Try it for 30 days. He's like, just wake up early. And I said, what time? He goes, well, try 5 a.m. I'm like, 5 a.m.? Are you kidding? There's no, I've never seen 5 a.m. in my entire life. Like, I don't even know what that looks like. And so I said, okay, I needed some accountability. So I went to my phone and I found the last 3 people that I had texted. So I texted them and I said, hey, my doctor's orders is I need to wake up at 5 a.m. You know me, I'm not going to. So I need some accountability. I don't want somebody to let down here. Here's a call-in number, just a simple call. And can the 3 of you jump on in the morning at 5 a.m. for just the next week, for 5 to 7 days? And I'll get better. I just need to get in the rhythm. And they're like, well, that's cool, Sharran. We're happy to do that for you. Well, for how long? I said, no more than like 3 to 5 minutes. They're like, what are you going to say on the call? I was like, I don't know. I'll make it funny or inspiring or interesting, but no more than 3 to 5 minutes. And they're like, well, do we have to be muted? I'm like, no, I'll just mute you. You don't have to do anything. Just get on the call. That way I'll know that you're on. Cool. First day comes around. I call in the call number. And as you know, when you do a conference calling and when someone comes in, it goes ding, ding, ding. So I hear the 3 dings, ding, ding, ding. I'm like, cool. All my 3 friends are on. I feel accountable. I delivered this message for 3 to 5 minutes and it was done. I was up. I was like, wow, 5 a.m. I feel pretty good. The next day I dial back in and then I hear ding, 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 ding. I'm like, what's this 4th number? That's weird. I guess another person's on the call, but I don't care. I'm going to keep doing it. The next day I hear ding, 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 ding. I'm like, wait, why are there 9, 10 people on this call? And so in the first week, it went from 3 to 10 to 30. Now I was like, well, there's 30 people on this call at 5 a.m. Like I can't stop now. So that's when we actually formalized this thing called the 5 a.m. Club. It's 5 minutes at 5 a.m. Pacific time, where we do 3 to 5 minutes of an inspirational message. There's no recording. It's all live. It's all on a very simple call-in number. We have people from all over the world that jump in on the call. It's 10 p.m. in Australia. It's like noon in Iceland. So it'll be noon kind of Greenwich time, if you will. And it went from 3 to 30 to 300. And today we have over 6,000 people in the community dialing in for 5 minutes at 5 a.m. So 6,000 plus entrepreneurs dialing in for 5 minutes at 5 a.m., 7 days a week, 365 days a year. One of the best daily entrepreneurial communities that could have ever been built. And I don't think I can ever quit because now I'm in it and I'm in it too deep.
Yeah, definitely. It's like you have such a strong accountability system now. That is like, you can't not be up at 5 to give that call, which is such a great thing. And I think to just build a community like that and a movement like that, where it's people are getting up to get after it, to go build better lives for themselves, to go crush it in their days and whatever they do. I think it's such a great thing when you can bring people together like that. It's really fantastic.
It's totally free, by the way. If anyone's interested, there's no commitment to being on the call. Like to some people, we actually have several government officials on the call. I know I have 2 U.S. senators on the call, which is pretty cool. We have 2 billionaires on the call that are very cool. I actually have 1 president that is on the call, president of a country that is on the call, which I think is way cool because that's awesome. Because I actually have the call logs and I can see who called in from where, which is awesome. And so it's 5amclub.net. And it's very easy. There's no funnel. There's no payment, nothing. It's just to join the community. So 5amclub.net.
That's awesome. I'll pop that all in the show notes, Sharran. Now, kind of, we've delved like quite deep into environment. I'm curious to know about the business side as well. And you've had a really impressive career. You've worked in corporate, you've worked as an entrepreneur, you've done an MBA. I have a few questions, but the first one is, how do you think all of the academic education and the corporate experience then helped you in your entrepreneurial endeavors?
So this may be really, it's a good question. It's really unfair to answer it this way. I hated every minute of it. It was the worst. It was so hard for me. I hated it. I like structured school, learning, tests, and like I think that's also just because of my learning disabilities and all of that. But memorizing stuff to take an exam, like that's to me, it's totally useless. And I'll give you a really good example. Like when we hire people these days, right? Literally, here's our hiring process. There's a form that people fill out. It's like an application, right? And it says, hey, enter your stuff, show me your portfolio, whatever, we hire you. And then I pay you. So let's say, we were hiring you, you applied for a role in our business, right? Literally, I would pay you to come work with us for one full day, right? Literally, I would just pay you. And the reason is I want you to, like, I would just plug you into all our systems and I would pay you for the day. And so and that way I don't care whether you can answer a question of how many table tennis balls fit in an airplane, like nothing. I don't care about, you have Google, figure out whatever you want, right? Like if there's a problem and you can't figure it out, that's on you. If you have a problem and you want to call a friend because your friend can help, that's amazing. Like why is interviewing skills important? Like work and collaboration skills are important. So literally how we hire now is straight up, come work with us for a day, see if you like it. Our team sees we like you. We literally very quickly, how they respond on Slack, how fast they can Google, how fast they're on email, how quickly they can solve problems. And they can see our work style too. So I've gone away from interview models, exam models, all of that, and been super practical. But I think it allows you very quickly to realize every experience, gives you one of two learnings, right? It gives you a data point. Do I like this or do I not? Like, to me, it's like, when I say, do I like this, they call it there's this quote, it says, people and things come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, right? Or some version of that. I can't remember exactly what it is. But so do you have to learn a skill? Sure. Hey, I need to go learn a skill to become a lawyer. I need to go study all of these things. I need to take the bar or whatever exam, barrister's exam, and I need to pass it. I'm learning the skill for a reason. Once the skills I am done, I never have to worry about it anymore. That's a reason skill, right? A lot of skills we learn is for seasons. Like, that's cool. Hey, you know what? I'm moving to this place. I need to learn marketing because my role now involves marketing. Cool. I learn it for a season. Well, there's some, things that you like that are very lifetime oriented, right? And so like one of the things that I could feel with, when you and I started talking right away was you are super into, figuring out how you can plug into a great network to grow. Like I felt that right away. And that's a lifetime kind of aspirational skill for you from what I know. So now when you see experiences, you're like, okay, cool. I want to do that because I see a lifetime kind of reward on that one, right? So a lot of times I ask myself, okay, this for me, school, MBA, college, all of that was just a reason. It was just a reason. Corporate to me was a season because I just needed to I needed to work in that structure to realize that that's not good for me and that's not how I work. But now I know that creating ideas, making things come to life, being an entrepreneur, a lot of times people, you and I should define this, right? And I'm curious as to, reverse the role. I'm curious as to what you think about this, but entrepreneurship, a lot of people think it's like, oh, today it's like the coolest thing. Like putting entrepreneur in your Instagram profile is like the coolest thing ever, right? But people don't realize entrepreneurship actually is a curse. Is not a badge of honor. Like my wife, she would almost do anything to punch me in the face so that I am not an entrepreneur anymore. Because I am constantly, I'm not present. I'm always thinking about stuff. I check email all the time. I take calls on the weekend. Like she'll tell me, why are you taking work calls on the weekend? I'm like, I don't work 9 to 5. I work all the time. I'm with my family all the time. We go on vacation anytime. Like to me, everything is integrated, right? Like that's how I live my life. But it took us, we've been married 12 years. It took us 8 to 10 years of our marriage for she and I to get over the fact that I am not going to change. And that fires me and fuels me. And without my work, I'm a really crappy husband. And like, it took us a while to figure that out. And so I think being an entrepreneur is a curse sometimes. And so don't just chase it, because sometimes you don't need to be like a highly risk-taking. You may just have entrepreneurial tendencies, and that's okay to be in an organization that supports that. Not everybody has to go and like build a business, because you're like, if you get super stressed about raising money and building stuff from nothing and not having opportunities and not having a paycheck, like this is scary, like for a lot of people, right? So I think that school was good for me to realize that it was not what I wanted to do. And so I would suggest to folks that know very clearly, hey, do I like that person? Do I not like that person? Are they a reason, season, lifetime? If they're a reason, cool. If they're season, cool. If they're a lifetime, great. Let me pour into that, right? So that's been super helpful to just give myself a framework of thinking, where should I invest more and where should I invest less?
Definitely. Yeah. Knowing what you like and what you don't like is so, so important. Sometimes you need to have a certain experience to be like, all right, nope, check the box, moving on. That's in the past now. Right. But as to my thoughts on what you were saying, entrepreneurship it's not something that you can just switch off, right? So not everyone's meant to be an entrepreneur, and there's nothing wrong with having a job if that's something you enjoy, or there's a reason for it to be in your life. There's nothing wrong with being an entrepreneur and innovating within an organization. And some people really value that stability of like, I have this stability. It's not this uncertainty. There's not all of this risk, right? And it's, they go home from work and you don't have to think about work now. It's done, and your thoughts are completely somewhere else for a period of time. But when you're an entrepreneur, and I feel this too, it's like it's always on. It's like I'm always thinking about what can I do here, what can I do there, what can I do there, and I'm like, it doesn't matter where I am, what I'm doing. I don't see the difference between a Sunday and a Wednesday. It's like, oh, what did you do this weekend? I just worked. Like, I'm confused. I'm like, I don't know, just did the same thing that I did on Thursday, right? So it's a blessing and a curse. And it takes a certain kind of person, it takes a certain kind of mindset to be an entrepreneur. But it's also an extremely exciting and extremely rewarding thing. So on the topic of skills that you were talking about, I'm curious to know, what is one skill that you learned that really moved the needle for you in your career?
Yeah, a great question. I think a lot more people should be asking themselves this, and other people this. The number one skill is how to pitch something straight up and a story. It's like, if you can't figure out how to take an idea, maybe internally or externally, how to pitch something is insanely powerful. It is like, I think I'm a student of that. And I'm like, have you ever watched late night TV where people are selling you stuff that, it's just like, if it's as seen on TV, by the 6-minute abs, or by the Ginsu knife, or, call this number to, get this and you get more. And like all of that stuff, like I love that stuff, because they are literally selling the hardest thing to someone that is just sitting on their couch eating a popcorn because they can't sleep, and people buy like insane amounts of money. And I think pitching stuff is really powerful, because at some point, whether it's internally in an organization, for a cause, a community, to your family, to get a date, to raise kids, whatever it is, we need to pitch something. It may be ourselves, it may be our ideas, it may be our causes, it may be what we believe in. And there's got to be, no one ever teaches us how to pitch something. Like that has never been the case. It's like write a report and do a presentation, but no, there's nothing on the line when you do that. It's what a teacher thinks to give you a grade, or what a professor thinks to give you a grade. But when you actually have to go out and write an email to sell something, give a TED talk to convince something, do a podcast to pitch something, it's super powerful. And I will tell you that learning it's not the sales skills. Like I'm not trying to convince somebody to buy. I'm just trying to I'm trying to communicate an idea to somebody. Right. And I think that's super powerful. Like, this is really strange of me to say, like I pitch my kids all the time. Cause if you can pitch your kids, like to me, my kids are like, what can I pitch my son today? Right. Like and so like, I've been trying to pitch my son, and you'll really appreciate this. I've been trying to pitch my son he's 9, super smart, like I think Mensa smart, for 18 months on starting a podcast, 18 months. And I told him, I literally have even told him, I will pay you for every minute on the episode. I'm literally trying to find a way, and he will not have anything of it, right? Nothing whatsoever. But finally I was like, hey, if you do the podcast with me, you don't have to take out the trash anymore. He's like, done, I'm in. I go, this is so much easier. Like that's all I had to do. I didn't have to pay you. So you start to realize that if you can't even pitch your own family and your friends, like who are you going to, how are you going to convince somebody? So I'm working on pitching stuff all the time because I'm like, how does this work? How does that work? What's the human tendency behind this? So if there's any skill that we can learn, it is how do you take an idea and influence and convince somebody of that idea?
Definitely. That's really powerful. I feel like your kids are probably your toughest audience as well. They're probably the hardest person to impress, right? And when you learn to pitch something, it's not like, oh, I'm doing a presentation. It's no, we're working together with the other person to see how can I create value? How can I communicate this idea to the person with this worldview? What are their needs? What are their motivations? What are their desires? And that all comes together to create the pitch. So I'm curious to hear from you. What are the nuts and bolts? Like, what is? How can someone learn how to pitch well?
Yeah, great question. So, there is a. Let's talk some mechanics, right? So the reason people buy when they buy an idea, buy something, is because they emotionally believe in it, and then they logically validate it, right? So basically, you're like, oh my gosh, I love this phone, I want it, and then you're like, it's $1,800. Cool, I think it'll work. It's not like the first thing is what we always try to tell people, like, we do the sell money at a discount thing. That's the easiest way, but you got to emotionally convince somebody about the pitch, because what is sales? It's emotionally convincing people of something that is good for them first, and then logically taking them to take the first step. So how you think about that is I always think about it, how do I open this emotional loop in some way? Right? I need to open the emotional loop. And the first way to open the emotional loop is I generally start by asking an emotional question. Hey, have you ever been frustrated when you walk on the beach and the sand gets in between your toes? They're like, yeah, all the time. Well, what if I was just thinking about this, what if there was like this pair of sandals that just invisibly put on your feet that would never, like you didn't even have to wear them, it would work. And I'm making this stuff up, by the way. They're like, wait, you've made those? Now I've created surprise, I've created curiosity, I've created some emotionality. And then I can say, well, no, I'm thinking about blah, 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 blah. Would you buy it? Now it's completely different. They've emotionally bought into the curiosity of the process. And now I can start to explain why it is. Most people are like, you should buy this car because of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, not at all, right? It's hey, have you ever wondered, like, did you ever want to send text messages while you were driving on the highway? Well, the Tesla can do that. Wait, what can? What do you mean? Now, like on one feature of autopilot, you've sold a $125,000 car, like stuff like that, right? So I always, even when I do keynotes, et cetera, the first thing when I come right out of the gate is you start with a question and people think questions are for engagement of audience. No, questions are to open the emotional loop, right? I just want to expand their minds, because different people are in different places. And when I can frame the question, now they're in sync with me. So they're at least somewhat in my zone. Otherwise, I have no idea whether you're still worried about your cat or whether you haven't sent an email. I have no idea. But when I ask you the question, I bring you back. Mechanically speaking, it's bring them back with that. Then you'll see the response. And if you don't feel like a connection, now you can ask more or actually have a conversation around it, right? So like when I think there's a Wolf of Wall Street thing that says, sell me this pen. Well, you're not selling anybody the pen, right? You ask the question, hey, when was the last time you did something really important? They're like, wait, was there a contract involved? Because agreements lead to great things. Yeah. Did you sign that? Because I signed my contracts. Okay. Well, here's this pen that I have. I use this pen to sign all my contracts. And I use this as a symbolic pen to give me good luck. Do you have something like this? Now emotionally, they don't. Oh, you may not need a pen. You may just need a bottle. Do you want to carry this bottle with you everywhere? Like whatever it may be, right? Now I'm like, I should probably have something symbolic. Cool. Now I can sell you the pen. Right. And so if you don't open the emotional loop and then validate it logically, then no one knows, they don't know what to buy. Right. And so so I always like framing a big question and then going into the benefits after.
Yeah, I think that's such a key point, because that way also you're making it very relevant to their life. If you just start, I'm doing my little pitch over here, right? They're like, okay, well, what's that got to do with me? right? But when you get that emotional hook, you're like, oh, I've had that experience in my life, or I've felt that situation before. Oh, what's the solution to this? Now they're open to hearing it, and they can actually see how that will make a difference in their life as well.
Yeah.
So
And I'll tell you this, right? A lot of times when you're pitching to someone that's really busy, they'll give you the cold shoulder, right? And it's okay. So if you ask people will say, well, yeah, but Sharran, I'm giving you this. And what if you look distracted? What if, I look like you're not paying attention? You ask a couple of questions. And if they don't care, you can say, Yasmina, I'm sorry. I don't want to bore you or bother you with this. Can you just give me your feedback on this question? Now it changes, right? So when you say, hey, I don't want to bore you or bother you, now I'm like, okay, he or she's attentive. Can you give me some feedback on this? And now when you say feedback or advice, they're like, cool. Now you can ask the same question over, and now they're re-engaged in the conversation, right? So a lot of times sometimes you need a couple of things to bring them back. And sometimes you just show some sincerity, show some guilt, show some whatever, but I need to bring you back. If not, I can't even talk to you about anything.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's such a great point. It's one of these things that's so small, but so simple. Just that little trick to re-engage the attention is really powerful stuff. Spoken like a true pitch expert. I love that. So
you do this often and you get turned down a lot. You start to realize that you need to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. You learn by doing and you improve on every single iteration. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we've covered a lot of really interesting topics, right? So before I ask you my final question, I'm curious to know, what are some rules that you have for your life that have led to success?
Yeah, there's actually many, and I try to. The first thing I think there's a meta answer in that one, right? The meta answer in that one is, if you don't have rules that you have written down, stuff's going to break, because you're going to actually make the same mistakes over and over again. And I think that's super important. So I have every time I create a rule, I write it up. I have 17 right now. They're very personal to me. And a lot of times it's like, hey, I've gone through this experience. I've learned from this, and it's super important. So I'll give you a very simple one. One of the rules is, I want to make sure, like, I do a lot of partnerships. I like being in partnerships with people, because I think that I can't I can't change the world on my own. So I love doing partnerships. I love doing 50-50 partnerships. Those are my favorite thing to do, where there's no overlap in skill set. And so one of the things that I do when I look for people in partnerships is, the rule for me is, I need to feel like their work ethic is better than mine. And I have good work ethic. Like, unless I feel like the other person's work ethic is better than mine, I will not get into the partnership. Because what happens in most partnerships is that you're like, Sharran and Yasmina, like, let's say I was your partner. You're like, man, Sharran just never pulls his weight. I'm so irritated. I work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, another Sunday. And like, he's off with his family. Like, he just thinks that, he can do this. And it's really bad resentment from a partnership perspective. But when I know that the other person's work ethic is better than mine, I know that our work ethics are aligned. I've realized that I get really resentful if like there's misalignment in work ethic. So one of my rules is, if the other person's work ethic is not better than mine at the very outset, I will not do the partnership. And so that's helped me a lot, because that way it's never about effort anymore, because people are always naturally putting that in. And when you start to have those rules, just are simple and easy, it helps filter a lot of the conversations.
Definitely. It shortcuts a lot of things. And I think sometimes you'll learn a really powerful lesson in the moment, but we have such short-term memories that you'll forget it. And then you'll make the same mistake a few months or a few years later. You'll be like, damn, but I'd already learned that lesson. But if instead you took that lesson and you made it a rule in your life, you're like, wow, okay, I learned from past experience that we need to have the same work ethic. Theirs needs to be better than mine. We both need to pull our weight. Then you're not going to have that problem anymore, because your brain is attuned to that message.
Yeah. I think your listeners will appreciate this. I'll give you the 10-second one on this one. A lot of people ask me, how do I choose CEOs that I work with, that I mentor? Very, very simple, right? I had to come up with a rule for that. I don't take on a lot. I only take on 8 at any given time, and I have a wait list. But the idea is I ask 3 questions. Do I like them? Can I help them? Can they pay? That's it. Right? It's super simple. Do I like them? Can I help them? Can they pay? Normally, it's like, there's a lot of people that I like and that I can help, but they can't pay, and the karmic balance is broken. because now I have a wait list of people who can, that I'm not allowing into the process, both for my well-being and theirs. So it's very simple. Do I like them? Can I help them? Can they pay? Those are the 3 rules. I ask the 3 questions. If the answer is yes, awesome, we do something, right? And once you have that, it makes a lot of decision-making a lot easier.
Yeah, definitely. Just having those rules, having those questions is such a key thing. And I think the do I like them thing is also very important. Like, I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially when they're starting out, especially when they're a bit younger, they think, oh, well, I'll just work with anyone who'll pay me. It's like, no, like you're not going to be invested. If you don't like the person, you're not going to be invested in their success. And you might as well just work with people you like. Why would you want to have some kind of just transactional relationship, right? If you like them, you have the power to choose. Everything is going to be better on both sides.
Yeah. Spot on.
Yeah. So my final question for you, Sharran, is what are 3 key truths about the entrepreneurial journey that you would drop on a young entrepreneur today?
That's good. So first one is singularity of focus. It's very easy in today's world to be ultra distracted. And so one, know that you may have to experiment a lot of paths, but at any given time, you should be going deep on one thing. So just say, hey, even if it's for 30 days, I'd say that's the smallest window. In this 30 days, I'm only going to learn one thing. I'm only going to learn funnels. I'm only going to learn copywriting. I'm only going to learn marketing. I'm only going to learn pitching, whatever it may be, the one key thing, because then in that 30 days, you literally, in today's market knowledge, you can almost become a semi-expert in that 30 days. And that allows you to know whether you like it or not. So that would be the singularity of focus would be the first thing. The second thing would be cadence of accountability. So you need, there's this great phrase that says, whatever measured, if you measure something, it grows, right? Which is cool. Like there's some kind of measurement associated with it. But if you measure it and report it, it grows exponentially. So there's got to be a way for you to report something to somebody outside of yourself, because you need some accountability, and that accountability needs to be with someone specific. The accountability is not just someone you pay. The accountability is someone that you don't want to let down, right? That's where true accountability is. There are people that just hire accountability coaches. Well, that's interesting, but I put 5 a.m. gym on my calendar all the time, but if I don't want to let my trainer down, then only then do I show up. So accountability has to be with someone that you don't want to let down. And that's number 2. And number 3, I would say, is as fast as possible, I would find a mentor. I would find someone that can help you just short circuit your path, because they've already been there. They've already seen that. They've already done that. And just 1-2 ideas, 1-2 conversations, something will click and it'll make you a better person. So if you can just stand on the shoulders of someone else and outsource your success to them, it gets pretty cool. So singularity of focus, accountability with someone that you don't want to let down, and then just outsource your success to someone else.
Mm-hmm. Those are 3 fantastic points, Sharran. I love this phrase, outsource your success. I've never thought of it like that before. And now that I'm thinking of it like that, I'm seeing it in a more enhanced way. I love that. But thank you so much for that. That was really powerful. I'm wondering, do you have anything that you'd like to plug, and where can people find you?
Yeah, the plug is a gift more than anything else. It's so during in this year, I went back during the pandemic and I did like 20 live masterclasses, 10 minutes each, on the 20 biggest lessons that I've learned in my career. I call this the 4-week-MBA. Literally, it's 20 10-minute modules. That's all it is. And instead of selling it, I am just giving it away for free. No funnel, no nothing, no payment. It's 4weekmba.com. It's the number 4weekmba.com. Literally just go sign up and you get it completely for free. I think it's not long. It's not a 400-hour course or anything like that. It's literally my 20 best lessons that I've learned in the last 20 years. And it's my gift to everybody. So totally, and there's no sales on it. So 4weekmba.com. Hopefully you get a chance to, enjoy it and download it.
That's really amazing. I'll put that in the show notes. And where is the best place for people to find you?
Yeah, the best place is on the I would people are like, I'm not going to go to Instagram. I'm not going to wherever there is personal brand stuff, I'm there. But I would still Instagram's probably the fastest way. But I would say, hey, just get the 4weekMBA. You get on my email list that way. That way I keep keep you posted on things that I'm working on. But the fastest way is, at least do yourself a favor before I put it behind a paywall. Go get it now, so at least you have it, and that's the easiest way to stay in touch.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, go get the 4-week MBA. Go give Sharran a follow on Instagram. Go share this episode with someone whom it would really help, whom it would really impact. And with that said, thank you so much for your time, Sharran. This was an epic podcast, and it was really wonderful having this chat with you today.
Awesome. I know it's just, I want everybody to know this stuff it takes a lot of effort. And so big kudos to you, big props to you for spending the time doing this day in and day out and sharing some good stuff with the world. So I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks, Sharran.